Hi guys, this is week 6 Project Life and I'm doing something a tiny bit different this week. I've got this foodie stamp set from Kelly Stamps that was just released and I'm letting that dictate how I've chosen my photos this week. I always have a lot of food photos, but I don't necessarily always put them all in. In fact, I'm quite careful not to. But this week I decided that I would go food heavy on my layout because I've got this awesome stamp set to use and I really want to take advantage of it. So there are only 2 spots that I need cards for, and I decided instead of using any cards, I'm just going to make my own. So I've got some trimmed down paper here, one 4x6 and one 3x4, and I'm going to do some repeat stamping. Shock horror, I know. It has been a while since I've done any repeat stamping like this. So I decided, you know, it's often fun to go back to things that you enjoy, and I really do enjoy repeat stamping, especially with my Kelly stamps. Now I want to show you something here because these are brand new stamps. I haven't used them yet, so I often do a little test stamp before I start, and these ones were not stamping that well. So I grabbed my eraser and gave that a whirl over the stamp, and I just want to show you the difference that that makes to the quality of the stamping. You can see the ones I started, and after I used my mono sand eraser, you just get the crisp, just totally dense black stamp. It's amazing the difference that it makes, and often I don't bother doing it, but you can see there that it actually does. It is worth the tiny bit of effort that it takes to just rub that over your stamp, and then all I need to do is go ahead and just repeat that over the whole card area. I just offset them just a little bit to spread apart the big word that says eat, and I really love the graphic look of it. It is an awesome card. I'm so stoked with that one. So I decided to do the same thing again on this 3x4, and I grabbed this Yum stamp because the thing I liked about the first card was how bold and graphic it was, and so this was the next sort of boldest stamp on the set, so I decided to use that one. And I'm doing the same thing with the eraser trick, and again, I mean, you don't even need to see it up close. You can see it even from far away what a difference it makes, but that's just one tiny hint for brand new stamps. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to repeat stamp this one, and I don't even get the whole way up the card before I realize I really don't love the look of it. The other stamp worked because it was this beautiful grid pattern that emerged when I repeat stamped it. This one, I mean, my stamping wasn't great to start off with, but I just don't love the Y hanging down off the actual word yum. Yeah, I wasn't stoked with the whole thing, so I decided to try again, give it another go after wiping off my inky stamp block. And this time I'm going to use almost the total opposite. It's this Delish stamp, and it is just this beautiful thin delicate line. So I didn't worry about doing the eraser trick on this one because there's not that big blockiness to it. And this is almost the exact opposite. It gives me this really delicate, beautiful, subtle pattern, which I really love. But again, the reason it works is because there is that grittiness to it. So the word is set in one block, and it just makes it so much easier to get that pattern effect. Now I'm going to use another photo for my title card this week. I realized I did the same thing last week and it worked really nicely, so I have no problem doing it again this week. Nothing is complicated this week. I'm just chucking some thickers on here. These were ones that were left over from last week. I loved that blackness. Of course, the only number that I didn't have left was a 6, but luckily I had a 9, so I just flicked that upside down and it became week 6, and then I'm just stamping my dates straight onto the photo. I wondered about adding another stamp from the actual stamp set, but I couldn't find any that would like work organically, so I just left it as is. Totally simple, but that's, you know, it adds to that graphicness of this week. Really the only embellishing I'm gonna do this week is just these tiny little bits of washi tapes, kind of a coppery gold color, but it kind of goes with the warmer tones in some of my photos this week. And I'm only adding 3 tiny little pieces to each of these smaller cut down photos. Now I can add a few more stamps to the actual photos of my layout. And I had this idea for the stamp because it says food selfie and this was just a regular selfie, so I thought I could mask it with this piece of post-it paper, but my ink pad is way too juicy for that. It went all over the stamp. It was going to be really messy. So I went and washed off my stamp, and then I had another idea just to use a scalpel, which definitely needs sharpening, to cut it apart. So I just cut it straight down the middle. So now I have a food stamp, a selfie stamp, and if I stick them both on the block at the same time, it would say food selfie as originally intended. So I'm just going to use my selfie stamp here with my Brilliance Moonlight white ink, and I'm just going to repeat stamp that up the side of my photo. I've got that sort of blank space in there, so it looks really cool, just aligned along the left going up. Again, another sort of graphic element to the page. Loved how that white ink looked on the photos. It is my favorite white ink for stamping on photos, so I'm going to use that in a couple more places here. I'm just stacking a couple of stamps to create my own sentiment on my carrots, my fancy carrots, very fancy carrots. They were delicious. And I'm just going to add one more stamp onto my food truck photo here, I Heart Food, just to have that sort of repetition of 3. Now obviously I want to add this brunch club photo to my photo of brunch, but it's a very busy photo and it wasn't really going to fit on there anywhere. So I went and grabbed out my Labels 102 set from Kelly Stamps, but really any label stamp set will do. I'm just going to stamp a label and then stamp brunch club inside it, and it kind of creates my own embellishment, I guess. It's not a particularly fancy embellishment, but it's a good way to add a stamp to a photo if you don't actually have the space, the blank space to stamp on a photo. I did stamp one of the other little circular stamps there, thinking I could add another embellishment, but when I thought about it, I didn't really have anywhere to put it. I've already stamped on just about every photo on here, so this was the only one I needed. I'm just going to stick it onto the side and trim off the excess. Now the only thing I've got left to do is add some journaling for this week, and obviously I didn't really have anywhere to add it, so I'm going to add this to the blank space of the bottom of my Lily photo. Lily isn't great. Again, it's been a rough year for her so far. It turns out her eye infection isn't an eye infection. They're not really sure of what is wrong, but she's, at the moment we're going on the theory of a bit of glaucoma, so we're just waiting to see whether she responds to the treatment that they've given her, and we'll go from there. But she's being very brave and getting spoiled absolutely rotten, so I don't think she minds at all. I just stitched that vellum onto the photo just so it didn't move around, and with that, this is the week finished. Obviously, I am a big fan of foodie stamp sets, and this one is no exception, so I will leave the link to the Kelly Stamps store down below for you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave me any comments or questions you have down below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to keep watching, there's a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye guys.